And joining me now for an exclusive interview is Gerlinde Niehus, former NATO Deputy Director for Defence and Security Cooperation. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
So 33 pages, all in the name of national security. Is this the Donald Trump White House putting on paper what we already know, that America is giving up on Europe?
To a large extent, I think it confirms what we have been hearing before. So I think in a nutshell, that paper is bad news for Europe, bad news for Ukraine, very mixed news for NATO, but at the same time, it's very good news for the populist right-wingers in some of our countries, and it's even better news for Russia.
And let's talk about that in just a moment, because as we go to air tonight, reports are also emerging of US officials briefing that they want Europe to take over the bulk of NATO's defence efforts by 2027. That includes intelligence and missiles. Is Europe ready to take on that burden, especially as far as I could see that this new strategy doesn't even seem to use the words Article 5, this clause that says an attack on one is an attack on all?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the reference to Article 5 is not there. I mean, when it comes to NATO, apart from referencing again that free riding is no longer acceptable, and insisting that allies now also deliver on the 5% pledge of investing in defense. What is most harmful, clearly, is that it basically seeks to revoke NATO's open door policy for eventual membership of other countries. And this open door policy, I mean, that's enshrined in the alliance founding treaty. So it's nothing which is a little petitesse. I mean, it's really one of the cores of the alliance. And that's something this strategy puts into question, because it refers to that there should not be there needs to be an end to the perception and preventing the reality of NATO as a perpetually expanding alliance. Already the term expanding alliance is actually Russian terminology. I mean, NATO talks about enlargement. So in that sense, it's very mixed news for NATO. But clearly, I mean, Trump's skepticism or outright opposition to multilateralism, be this in NATO or the EU, that we have seen before on display.
When it comes to what you mentioned there about not wanting to perpetually, quote, expand, I mean, is Ukraine's NATO ambition now effectively dead in the water?
Well, if it comes to Trump, the answer is probably yes. But we have, as NATO, I mean, we have the commitment which was made in the 2024 Washington, ironically, Washington Summit Declaration, where it clearly says Ukraine's future is in NATO. Yeah. And we will continue to support Ukraine on its irreversible path to full Euro-Atlantic integration, including NATO membership. So that's the, if you wish, the acquis in NATO at a time that included, of course, the US. Not the current administration, but the predecessor. But still, this is the what has been agreed. And of course, on the Ukrainian side, it's even in their constitution. Yeah? So, but in many ways, I mean, all this just underlines, reinforces the ever more urgent need of Europeans to develop their own strategy, be this for Ukraine or be this for European strategic sovereignty.
And let's talk about that sort of rallying of the far right that you indicated earlier on, because looking at this document, on one hand we have the line here, enabling Europe to stand on its own feet. On the other we have, and I quote again, cultivating resistance to Europe's current trajectory. So is Washington trying to have its cake and eat it too, both give orders and give up responsibility?
Yeah, I think that's a fair description. I mean, I think in essence the US wants to make Europe a kind of mini MAGA area. Yeah. So in many ways, if you read this document, I mean, it seems to be inspired from J.D. Vance's speech at the Munich Security Conference, and ironically, I mean, the only area where this document sees a threat to democracy is is in Europe. Yeah, I mean, this is bordering absurd. Yeah. So then, I mean, it also refers to Europe to further curb migration from Muslim majority and eventually so patriotic push to overturn what they perceive as countries then being no longer European. It echoes to some extent this sort of racist great replacement conspiracy theory. Yeah? And then it culminates in basically saying that the biggest threat to Europe is of civilizational nature or civilizational erasure even, and that's even more existential according to them than the insufficient military spending and economic stagnation. So all in all, I think what we are seeing here is a MAGA blueprint for Europe, and Trump wants to bond with his right wing counterparts wherever they are, in order to turn Europe into a mini MAGA.
Well, earlier this year, I was in Munich when Vice President J.D. Vance, as you rightly point out, admonished leaders for refusing to work with parties like Germany's AfD. Now we have an American security strategy that has become a call to arms, if you like, for the European continent to resist, and is, of course, warning of civilizational erasure, as you hinted at there. Is this crossing the line, the red line, potentially, of blatant political and foreign interference in action?
Well, I think there have already been the first voices out there, including the German foreign minister, saying, "Well, we don't need this advice." Yeah, so I will see whether others will make similar lines. The Commission has so far not spoken up. I mean, they are studying the document, but I could well imagine that also France and others will say, "Well, mind your own business." I mean, and how Europe deals with right-wing extremism, open speech, and the likes is European matter and not the US concern.
Some say this document harks back to the 19th century Monroe Doctrine, which of course warned against global interference in America's backyard. What is America's end game here? What does Donald Trump want for his country?
Well, I mean, to me, this reads like re-establishing a sphere of interest or sphere of influence, and that in itself, of course, will be of great joy to Vladimir Putin, because it will justify his own way of establishing spheres of interest. Yeah? So, but I also expect that this heavy focus, which is in the document of the revoked or reanimated Monroe Doctrine, that will probably also trigger a lot of pushback from Latin America, yeah? Because they will see this as, again, U.S. overreach and hegemony, especially now in light of the recent U.S. strikes on presumed drug boats where they are killing crew members. That critique is already rising. And there are many out there saying, I think with good justification, that what the US is doing there is breaking international law, is illegal.
And I guess the question is also not just what America's end game is, but how does the world order pivot, read Europe, when Washington says, we don't like this world order anymore?
Yeah, I mean, Europe in this strategy is considered not even secondary but tertiary. Yeah? I mean, it focuses first on the Western Hemisphere, then on Asia, and then is in the third place comes Europe. But in my mind, I mean, it clearly shows that Donald Trump has driven a wedge and a permanent wedge, if you ask me, between European and US security. And I don't see that they will be coming back. So again, we as Europeans need to take our destiny in our own hands, believe in our own strengths, stick together, because every country otherwise is much too small, and develop our own plan for our security and defense, and also develop our own peace plan for Ukraine, because what the US is developing there is clearly not a peace plan.
Now, we're running out of time, but there's also a specific mention of the, quote, healthy Central, Eastern and Southern European countries and the plan for commercial ties, weapons sales, political collaboration. How do you read into this? Because is America trying to go over the head of Western Europe to deepen ties with your Viktor Orbáns of this world, but also woo the likes of Poland, for example, to become perhaps some kind of a continental mouthpiece?
Yeah, no, I think the whole gist is that the strategy is emphasizing bilateralism. I mean, it talks about the primacy of the individual nation. It's condescending on multilateralism and international organizations, which it refers to as being intrusive and similar. So, and that, of course, is immediately applicable to the European Union, which it tries to weaken, but also to split. And the reference to countries in Central Eastern Europe is clearly a way of undermining European unity. Yeah. And then clearly, I mean, the reference also to keep buying American at the same time is actually, misleading, to put it mildly, because what happened in the past years, according to data from CIPRI, is actually that Europe has increased its spending in US weapons and not decreased. So there's nothing from the US side to complain about when it comes to buying American.
And very briefly, I want to end with a simple question when it comes to NATO. Is the transatlantic alliance in a state of collapse, or has it already collapsed as we know it?
Well, in a state of collapse, not yet, because I mean, clearly it's still operational, if you wish. But on a strategic level, it is in an existential crisis, because topics like Russia, Ukraine, European sovereignty, China, all these necessary strategic discussions can no longer happen in NATO with a US which is performing the way it is performing.
Gerlinde Niehus, former NATO Deputy Director for Defence and Security Cooperation. Thank you so much for your time, as always.
My pleasure.
And that's all for World News tonight. Do stay with us here on TVP World for more. I'm Aaron Darman. Good night.